evening, everybody. Luke Groman, founder and president of FFTT. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Great Father's Day to all you dads out there. No, I had a great one. Hope you did as well. Just literally got in from Boston, was up there visiting customers, and remember to bring home some legal seafood for the missus. So Mrs. FFTT is enjoying the legal seafood lobster roll when you're in Logan Airport. Definitely check it out. Let's jump right in here to the two things that grabbed my attention this week. First off, I retweeted a Danielle DiMartino Booth Macro Voices appearance in which she discussed what she thought was the importance of a change in effective lower bound versus zero lower bound vis-a-vis Fed speak, Powell specifically at a recent Fed meeting. She thinks it's potentially important, and I would defer to her on that. I thought it was really interesting because we had been writing about other Fed officials talking about getting more aggressive with dollar liquidity injections, whether it was Brainerd in terms of yield curve control, whether it was Powell talking about basically doing whatever it takes, Clarida discussing the same. And so continue to think it is underappreciated the degree to which the Fed's hand appears to be being forced by U.S. money markets, which is to say Fed funds being above interest on excess reserves, suggesting a dollar shortage in the U.S.'s own banking system being caused by excess U.S. deficits crowding out the U.S. banking system. So that was number one, was that podcast. I would track it down that Danielle appeared in. Number two would be the lack of the response to the price of oil to events in the Straits of Hormuz last week. We tweeted about it. Is it a sign of that the economy is getting that much weaker that faster, that oil basically did nothing? Is it a sign of a lack of credibility on the part of the U.S. government? And I think there's some hints to that, certainly in how Europeans, Japanese, and others have responded, which was basically show us more proof, which we're seeing, the boy who cries wolf sort of playing out in real time in realpolitik. And I think it also could be a sign of multi-currency oil in terms of the dynamic that once you have oil being priced and settled in multiple currencies, the cross rate of those currencies becomes increasingly important to the price of oil. So that was the other thing that really grabbed my attention. A couple quick questions here that you guys dropped in the feed. I'm going to run through those quickly. One, if the Fed doesn't give markets what they want, what gets hit first or most, equities or government debt? In my view, equities, no question, starting with emerging markets and highly levered names and working inward from there. If QE is renewed, what do I think would happen? I think the dollar would weaken potentially in a pretty pronounced manner and probably relatively quickly, given the trade war. I had a question about Facebook's Libra crypto. No opinion yet at this point. I've heard it's tied to a basket of currencies. If that's the case, I'm not sure what the point is, but again, I just haven't done enough reading on it yet, so I'm going to take a pass on that. I had a couple questions regarding yuan oil versus dollar oil. The thought process there, or the dynamic, is oil is fungible by and large. I understand there's different grades and deliverables, etc. Oil's fungible, and in commodities, the marginal ton prices the whole. That is something the CFO of one of the biggest commodity traders in the world told me 10 years ago. So if those two things are true, and they are, then if oil is priced in yuan and in dollars, then the law of one price has to hold. And the law of one price would say that if the yuan falls against the dollar and oil's priced in both yuan and dollar, then if yuan falls against the dollar, then oil's got to fall against the dollar too. And so I had another question about why has the interest amongst Wall Street been so low in terms of the yuan oil contract and the potential implications. I think, what I would tell you is there's a high degree of interest in it from major investors around the world. I can tell you that because I'm talking to them. That said, among the sell side, there's really very little interest. U.S. sell side, there's very little interest. Some of this, I suspect, is partly a lack of imagination on their part, but there's also, I think, just no political upside internally in some of these big firms to getting really creative about what it could potentially mean, particularly in the current trade environment and the environment with China. Had a question regarding a potential COMEX force majeure. I think the odds of that are extremely low, with one caveat. I think if you get the yuan to fall chaotically, and by that I mean break through 7, go to 7.5, 8, or 9, then I think things could start to get interesting, simply because every time the yuan's gotten near 7, London in particular, U.S. to a lesser extent, have bled gold inventories. If the yuan fell faster, I'd expect that bleeding of gold inventories to out of the west to the east to accelerate, and that might change that dynamic. But for foreseeable circumstances, I just don't think that that's something that's on the table. Last one, Judy Shelton. I think her nomination is interesting. I think she is a very bright woman. I agree with many of her sentiments. It's unclear to me what the strategy is for Trump in terms of nominating her, but as I tweeted a couple weeks ago when she was being attacked by Larry Summers, to me, Larry Summers attacking Judy Shelton, if I was Judy Shelton, I'd wear that as a badge of honor. Larry Summers got a lot of really big things wrong over the last 15 years, and he is ultimately a spokesperson for the dollar system as currently structured, and so I think there may be informational value there in terms of Larry Summers attacking Judy Shelton and the way he did publicly on Twitter as an unworthy candidate for the Fed. That we can maybe read into what the establishment thinks of her. So, at any rate, I'm going to jump off. And if you enjoy these quick updates, check out Tree Rings, fftt-llc.com. It's under the subscribe tab. We do 10 most interesting things every Friday with brief synopses, charts, etc. Getting great feedback on it. Very nominal cost for investors. So. Otherwise, we will do this, I believe, next Sunday. And in the meantime, hope everyone has a great week, and we will talk with you guys soon. Take care, everybody.